What is going on, guys? So today, the moment I've been waiting for a while, I'm installing the Maximum Motorsports 3-point front strut tower bar. First things first was to remove the wipers. So what I did was I marked on the window, just made little marks where the blades were, just so I know last time how to get them off. But there's these little clips you can see right there. You just pull one side and then the wiper blade just lifts straight off. Pretty easy. And then once those are off, you can pop the hood, get in the hood, and we're gonna set the bar in there, and I'm gonna mark where it mounts on the firewall, because we're gonna have to remove that plastic and cut a little section out to mount the third point to the firewall. So once we got the bar set in place here, the instructions say to mount the bar to the two strut towers. So I'm going to use the 8mm bolts, mount this thing up on both sides so that it's secured in place on those two angles. Here is all the supplied hardware. Basically comes, in a little baggie like this here. Everything you need. I kind of laid it all out, kind of organized it just so that I know where everything's at and know that I have everything here. So to bolt it into place, we're going to use these bolts here, the 8mm ones, with those washers. There's 6 of them, and there's 3 holes on each strut tower to mount it. So we're going to use those to mount it up. All right, everyone. So once all 6 bolts are in on each strut tower bar, on the 2 strut tower bars, we're going to now mark. We're going to trace where the 2 brackets are on the firewall, because we're going to have to take this bar back out, remove this plastic, and then cut that piece out, that plastic piece around where the bracket sits. And just an FYI, this was 13mm bolt head, just so you guys know, and I just used a standard ratchet socket just to anchor that on. Okay, so we got the strut bar removed again, and we got the area. You can kind of see it there, right there. We got it marked off. You can see it better down there. We got it marked where we need to cut. So now we're just gonna have to take this plastic piece off. This plastic cover here, it is held in by these small 7mm screws. And there's quite a few of them all the way down. So we're gonna remove all those and then get this plastic piece out. All right, guys, so once all the screws are out, which there were quite a few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 screws, and they're just sheet metal screws, and that was a 7mm. Once those are all out, this just pops right off. Once you get that off, we'll do our cuts. All right, so once you have the cover off, what I did is I just used some sheet metal shears, cut the first straight lines here, and then just used a utility knife, scored the back a few times, and then just bent it, and it broke right off perfectly. And we'll do that for the second side. All right, so with both pieces cut, you're supposed to put this back on and then test to see if it fits. While I got it off, I'm gonna clean it up. You can see how dirty it is. I'm just kind of wiping it down. Just kind of wipe it off a little bit. I kind of wiped the back side of this off too, just to, I know no one's gonna see it, but just for my peace of mind, get all this dirt and stuff out of here. All right, guys, so I put the brace back in, test fitted it. The areas I cut were good. So now what we have to do is open this door, and there's a 5/16 bolt down here. We gotta loosen it up. Let's see. Try to point it to you guys here. Right there. Loosen that up, and then we'll go from there. Once you have that bolt right there removed, do the same for the other side. All right, guys, so we're not removing this piece. You're just unbolting it so that you can pop it enough, just enough to get this plastic cowl out. Be careful with this cowl, because it is very breakable. And I'm gonna come back to that. I need both hands. I'm filming with one hand, but I'll show you on this side kind of what I mean. You're just popping it out so that it's available just above it, the A-pillar there. Once you get it popped up, you're gonna go underneath where the windshield wiper squirters are, and you're gonna unhook the hose line which I'm just going to leave mine unhooked because if you remember, I removed the washer fluid tank, so I don't even use the fluid for the wipers. All right, once the hose lines are disconnected, gently pull it out. These things are very brittle and they break very easily. They're known for breaking. I got mine out in one piece, luckily didn't break it. And so now we're going to set the bar back in place, the strut tower bar, and then we're going to mark the holes on the firewall where we're going to need to drill. All right, everyone, so the next step is important. So you have to, after you get that stuff removed, you have to bolt the strut tower bar to both strut towers, all 6 bolts, 3 on each side, bolt it completely down. Because what you then have to do is you have to push this down where it meets the firewall, and you've got to mark the holes where it sits all the way down and against the wall, because you're going to be drilling those holes, and that's where it's going to mount to the firewall. So this has to be bolted down on these 2 strut towers so you can push that down and accurately mark the holes. So we're going to do that next. All right, guys, so once it's bolted up, as you can see on this driver's side, it's not going to be completely flush where it should be. So what you're going to have to do, what I did, because I tried to put weight on it and I couldn't get it down, so what I did was I just used some vice grips, pulled the piece together, and then I marked my holes. The Sharpie wouldn't work. It worked on the driver's side, but it wouldn't work for all of them over here, so I just used a nail, put it through there, kind of scratched up where I needed to put the hole, and then we'll just kind of go from there with that. All right, so after you get the holes marked, you got to unbolt the strut bar again and take it back off so that you can drill the holes. And while we're on the topic, I did just weigh it. 5.2 pounds is what I weighed. I got on the scale, weighed myself, then picked it up, got on the scale again. So I'll be adding 5.2 pounds to the front, which basically offsets the crash sensors and horn that I removed and the IMRC plates. So not a big deal though, because I've got some other plans for the front that'll, you know, help it drop weight. But anyways, back on topic. So got the holes marked, so I'm going to drill those out and then I'll continue the video. All right, so holes are drilled. You can see there, got the pinch weld and the firewall. What I did was I started with an 1/8 inch bit, and then I used the 5/16 for the final hole, and then I used some wire brush and a chisel, because I don't have a file, but a file would work better, to kind of clean up around the holes, make sure there wasn't any like metal clippings like shards or whatever hanging off. So now that we got the holes in, we're going to move to the next step, which is getting the bolts and stuff put in. All right, so now we're going to take the 3/4 inch bolts that came with the hardware kit. We're going to install them into the metal plate, both metal plates. So see, we got 2 here. These are for each side. These are going to go into the firewall right there. And the part of the bolt sticking out is going to be the guide. The small hole that's there, that needs to be on the bottom. So make sure that that's on the bottom side when you install these. Now with that plate in there, that small hole, you're going to use like a scribe or something to mark that hole, and then we're going to take the plate back off. All right, so now that we got our mark right there, we're going to drill it with a 1/8 inch bit, and then we're going to bore that out to 3/16. And then we're going to deburr the hole like we did with these other holes, you know, kind of smooth them out so that there's no burrs on them. All right, so once you have the 3/16 hole drilled, you're going to take your nut plate. You're going to take those 2. I put them in here just to hold them, but those 2 3/4 inch bolts out, and then you're going to put this on the back side like this, and you're going to put those bolts through the holes that you drilled, and you got to make sure that this small hole is lined up with the small hole we just got done drilling, and you're going to hold this in place while you put the bolts in, and we're going to bolt it down because a sheet metal screw has to go through here. Now when we get to the driver's side, as you can see, you can't stick your hand down that hole and hold on to it, so we're going to have to improvise, and I'll show you how to do that here in a minute. But first we're going to get this one on here. All right, so for the passenger, or for the driver's side one, Like I said, that hole's too small to really fit your fingers down there. So what I did, and what I'm going to do, is I'm going to tape this to a screwdriver and just kind of hold it down there while I screw it in. And hopefully that works out for me. Alright, so once you have the bolts in and both the sheet metal screws in, you're going to take the bolts out but leave the sheet metal screw, because that's going to hold that in place while you put the bar in and put those bolts back in. So don't remove the sheet metal screw, but remove the bolts so that you can get the bar in. Alright, so next step, you're going to get the bar back in, the strut tower bar. And I want to correct a mistake. I think I said earlier I said 3-point, and this is actually a 4-point. There's 2 mounting points on the firewall and then 1 on each strut bar. So it's a 4-point strut bar. Anyways, you're going to put the hardware back in, but don't tighten it all the way down. Just loosely get it in there so the bolts don't slide out on all of them. Well, I shouldn't say all of them. The pinch weld on the firewall, and then these here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to tighten down the ones on the firewall, and then we're going to put in tighten down the ones on the pinch weld, and we're going to put the ones in on the firewall. And I will tell you guys that this is probably the hardest part of the whole thing, was getting the nut and the washer on the bottom part, especially down there. That was not easy to access down there. I actually lost one of the washers on the bolt right there. So it's just got a nut on the bottom, no washer on the bottom. So pretty difficult. So, take your time, try not to get too frustrated. This is probably the most time consuming part so far, was getting these bolts just in enough to where they're, the nut's not going to fall off. All right, so that part took a little while. It takes some finesse, because you got to kind of loosely screw everything in, and then because the car's so old, and I'm sure it's had body roll, and it's not perfectly straight, and it's not the exact same as whatever Cobra they based this off of when they built the strut tower bar. It didn't line up perfectly. So you kind of had to screw an area, screw an area, screw an area, screw an area, loosen an area, and just kind of go back and forth until it all came together. The only ones that I can't get fully tightened are these two right here. They go into the firewall. Everything else is tightened. So, 6 out of 8 bolts, that's fine. I'm not worried about it. You can count these as a half, basically, because they're in. They're just not all the way in. But all 3 on that tower, all 3 on this tower, they're all in tight. This thing ain't going anywhere. It's solid. So I'm pretty happy with it. All that's left to do now is put the cowl back on, this cover that goes on the inside of the engine bay back on, wiper blades back on, and you're good to go. I'm not going to show you all that. Just do the reverse of how you took it all off, and you'll be good to go. But yeah, got the Maximum Motorsports 4-point strut tower bar in. I guess you'd call it a 4-point. There's 3 points, but technically, that's 2 points back there, so I don't know. Whatever. I'm excited to get the rest of the car back together. As you can see, I've been working on some other stuff down here, so excited to get that back together and get this thing on the road and get it to its first autocross of the year and see how it does. So hopefully you enjoyed this somewhat of a how-to, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.